Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Impulse Control Experiment. My name is Joel Harrison, and we have wrapped up the experiment, at least in theory. Still have a few more episodes to finish. I promised you 30 in 30 days, and I'm going to get more like 30 in 35 days, but I'm still bringing them at you guys. Today, I have brought in one of my awesome new friends. He does a podcast. He is a relationship coach out in beautiful Hawaii. And this guy kind of came to me. I mentioned the experiment that I was getting ready to do it in a group, and he like jumped out and said, "Hey man, can I talk to you about this stuff?" And just from the get-go was kind of an inspiration and there to support with literally zero benefit to himself, just being an awesome guy. I started listening to his podcast, First Wake Ups with Ryan Charaba, and going to be honest, it's probably what led me to doing this podcast was your information, your style, and your awesome co-host Amber being real and raw with everybody and telling people what was up. And I was like, I have to do this. I have to be real and raw with people. And so, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my new good friend, Ryan Charaba. Hey, Ryan, how are we doing?
Dude, I'm doing super good. I appreciate that. And one of the things I noticed right away and what I do is that this is absolutely a benefit to me. Reaching out and connecting with people is, since I started doing that, has drastically changed my life. So don't let it fool you that I didn't get a benefit from reaching out and connecting with you as well, because now we're here today. And so it all works out perfect.
Yeah,
I love it,
absolutely.
man. Yeah,
And
for
that's
sure.
one thing that's like fueling my soul right now is, the podcast just started out, but through the month I've had, I got some analytics. So I've seen I have over 1,000 views. So that's pretty cool, or
Mhm.
listen. So I'm reaching some people, and then I'm getting some people that are actually sending me a message and being like, hey, this episode was super real. It was super prevalent. Like it helped me. And I'm just like, my heart grows this big
Heck yeah,
and I just
man.
get warm and like, it just feels so amazing when you reach out to somebody and you're like, hey, try this. It'll help you feel better. And somebody's like, oh my God, it helped me feel better. It just,
Yeah.
it's
I
awesome.
love it. No, it's one of the things that Amber and I get the most of is Amber gets a lot of love on the
She
Ryan
deserves
Rob
it.
First Vegas with podcast, and it's awesome. But the stuff that they get, they're like the most, I guess, not the most surprising thing that we get, but the thing we get the most often that I think can be surprising is people are like, I had no idea. If people that are close to her or close to us, they're like, I had no idea you were experiencing that. And I
Mm.
think the most important thing to realize is that, like, I think me and you were able to connect and be really real. It's like, oh, dude, I've totally experienced something like that before. And I think the more we're open and the more we share, the more we realize, oh, I'm the same as that person over there in this regards. And I think it's just the more we can share, the more that connects. And that feedback that we've been getting is really, it's proving it's kind of proving our experiment, like what we wanted to do and how we wanted people to get together and collect and share more and connect more and realize that we're way more similar than we are different. And so continuing to get that feedback too is so valuable to us. And it just, like you said, fuels our fire. Our heart grows 2 or 3 sizes, just like the Grinch. It's Christmas time and we can all, like, you know, cut steak and give it to Cindy Lou Who and be happier together. And so I'm stoked about it.
Yeah, man, it's awesome. And like I said, it truly inspired me to go like, oh, okay, so you want to go through this change. And I was started because I was a little bit worried about accountability. I was like, if I have something better, someone else to be accountable to, then I will more likely stay in the parameters of the experiment. And when I heard um Amber, you and Amber together, but basically Amber being like, here it is, here's my shit. And I'm going like, I have some of those same feelings. I have some of those own thoughts. And the value in there is identifying that we're all similar in those things. And they might not
Mhm.
be all exactly related. We might not have the same things, but the base feelings are there and getting that out. And that was why I wanted to share. And that's what I feel like you and my audience have in common is they get that
For sure.
that realness that goes, oh, I have that too. And this guy's talking about it. And you're always talking about just talking about it, getting it out.
Yeah, just
It
talking about it.
changes the whole game.
So
So
I think one of the biggest things, and I think one of the common misnomers we have as far as sharing goes, is that we feel the thing that we're not sharing is connected to something bad or wrong or shameful. And I think one of the things that I'm really, really through the first Wake Ups project and my project with Amber, one of the things that I'm really noticing is that the more that you can get this stuff out, and that pain that we feel from holding it down isn't pain from which what I would have used to have said is like us decaying like internally. It's like leaving, you like go to Costco and you buy like the bucket of spinach, and like in 2 or 3 days it's like rotting in your fridge. And I think that's like the metaphor we look at. It's like this thing we're sharing is like rotting inside of us. But I think what's actually happening is there's something really powerful or something really creative or something that you could really, really harness and use to help other people. And that's the thing that wants out. It wants to break out of that rotten shell. And then, but once it comes out, you're like, oh my goodness, this is like this amazing thing. You know, like the podcast you created. Like, dude, 25 episodes is amazing in a month. Like, that's amazing. And it's like getting that stuff out. And then it's like, you know, even if one person reaches out and says, dude, that helped me so much. You're like, oh my goodness. All I had to do is, and then the pain is like, it's essentially not there, and it's replaced with this like excitement. And it's like that feeling of your heart being like, feels like it wants to burst out of your chest. And it's this, I love it so much. And for me, like, this is my most favorite thing in the world. And for so many years, it was just the opposite, like hiding behind a uniform or behind a gym membership or behind the 3 or 4 women I was dating or my cool car or whatever it was. And that's just, you know, it's just not the same. It's not as valuable. You know, even there's no price tag you can put on either. And that's the good part.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. And, you know, as I see kind of here, well, here we are, it's December 3rd. So I've been technically outside the experiment for a couple of days, and anybody who was listening knows that I was jonesing for a beer and a joint. And as I got closer to the end of the experiment, I wanted those things. And then over the weekend I had, you know, I didn't hit it too hard, but I had a couple beers and I had a couple joints, and I went back to those things, and I'm like, okay, I see now how kind of changing the arrangement there, moving the prevalence, the enjoyment of, you know, being inebriated to helping somebody and getting that joy that they're not even comparable. And, you know, now to move forward into that piece of life and where I want to go from here is a little bit easier now that you have that, you know. And that was kind of the thing I was interested in, to see what it was like when I went back.
Dude, I love that context too. And I love that's what you experienced. You said that the joy, you had a few beers, you had a couple of joints, and it was fun and it felt good, but it
was fine. Yeah.
Didn't even compare to like getting those emails and like hearing those peep from other people.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love that. That's a huge contrast. So I remember you and I talking about this last week about you going back. And so I think it's good that you did, because now you have that like strong contrast. And so that's cool, man. I freaking really think that's great.
Well, it was like one of these things I was having a good struggle about over the last 10 days of the experiment. Like, okay, I've hit this good point. Good stuff's coming out. The universe is loving on me, all that stuff. But then as soon as I hit that halfway point, started looking at, like, you know, going to the grocery store and seeing some stouts on the shelf and just being like, hey, girl, how you doing? You know, and it, like, you know, or like it wasn't like a getting drunk point. It was more like, I like stouts, I like fancy beers, you know, and so they were here and I couldn't have them, and people were posting about them on social media and stuff, and I was like glorifying and fantasizing them, and you know, in that respect, a little bit, I'm still think is fine, but it was interesting to have that, like, oh, I didn't get this feeling at all. Or, you know, I got this feeling in the last month when I was sober that I didn't have before that.
I just have a question because I'm so interested. What kind of beers did you drink?
Stouts, like chocolate stouts.
Okay.
And a porter. And a porter. My buddy sells beer for a brewery that's like,
oh, perfect,
far away from me, and he like brought me a beer from his brewery, and that was like my first beer. So
like the enjoyment that you got from them, was it a different kind of enjoyment than you would have got a month ago? You know, it's kind of, it's like wine was one of my example I'll use.
Yeah.
Like I didn't really, like 10 years ago, I didn't really like wine. I was married to a wino alcoholic, and her thing was wine. She was like a bottle and a half a night, you know, just whatever. And she's like this tall. But anyways, it's and so that was kind of like my thing. But then we got divorced, and then I started dating somebody else, and they were like, "Oh, wine," and da da da. And I was like, "Okay." And I remember going to wine tastings with my ex before we got divorced, and learning more about it, and being like, "Oh, this is in, this flavor." But then you watch the show, it's all bullshit anyways, because it's just you drink
Right.
what you like. But anyway, but it's like the more I got to know about it, and I think I like cider. And so ciders is the thing too. Like I'll try different things, be like, "Oh, this one's really good. You can taste this." And so it's like kind of that enjoyment. So it's like a learning process involved to it. So I was just curious if it's, but you may already know all that stuff. So.
Well, yeah, but and because I've worked in the service industry for a long time before, as actually where I left to finally take the kick in the pants to start doing my own thing was I got laid off from a restaurant management job. The restaurant didn't doing well. They were going to close one day a week. They didn't need as many managers, so they just moved me out. So that was when I went, okay, like I can't do this life anymore. Time to transition and try to do, more of my stage work and more of which led me into doing change work as well.
Right.
And so, I enjoy drinking for that reason, for the enjoyment, for the nuance, different flavors and those kind of things, as much as I do going out dancing on a Saturday night and, having a few more. And so, but now I think that drinking is going to tail off. The cheap whiskey and water at the bar, is going to, because that's the getting drunk drinking.
For sure.
There's two different kinds of drinking. There's enjoying a $10 cocktail, because it's delicious. And then there's enjoying $4 whiskey and water so I can get hammered. So there is a difference there. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good notice too. Cool.
Yeah.
What was the biggest thing you noticed, because I'm a relationship guy? What was from you and your wife doing this together? What was the biggest thing what was the biggest change you noticed inside of your relationships?
Oh, immediately it was super tough. I mean, it was super tough because I think that there was a lot, and we knew this going in, that there was a lot to fix in the relationship, and we had been fighting a lot, just on that pace where you're like, man, sometimes it just feels like that's all we do anymore is fight. Right. And, you start to think, which is better, staying with this person that I really do love and fighting all the time, or finding an alternative solution. And so that was one of the things that I felt like would be a side effect of the experiment, was an improvement in our relationship. But I don't think we realized how much we drank or smoked or partied to numb kind of the fact that we weren't engaging and doing our relationship,
For sure.
And so like, as soon as all that stuff dropped out and here we are like sober at 7:00 on a Monday evening, like, and dealing with some of that stress, like we fought constantly for the first week hard and got to some things that were like, but as soon as there wasn't anything sitting on top of it, like to calm that out. So it was like, okay, I'm going to emotionally fight. And that was like the first 3 or 4 days. And then I'm like, okay, this emotion fight isn't getting us anywhere. So then I tried to drop the emotion out of it and came to the point where I was like, here's what is going down. And here's the consequence of if we don't fix it. And here's my real life, like, fears. Like, I'm afraid that if we don't fix this, it's not going to be fixable through this project. And so it was really, I didn't expect to have that much of a hard time in the beginning, even though I knew that it was going to be tough. But as we kind of settled in, we found communicating to be a little bit stronger.
For sure.
It came to this point where like, and I was taking, I still am taking Reiki 1 trainings, like energy healing. Sure. And I was talking with my mentor, and I even had a couple conversations with you at the time. And it was just like, I had to learn to communicate in an emotional state and to come back from red line, super pissed emotions, because all I'm going to do is yell and scream and say things that I don't mean.
Right.
And when I finally came down and I'm like, hey, you just said this, that hurts my feelings, or that makes me angry, or that worries me about this. Like, it doesn't go well for the flow of conversation, but like, as soon as something comes out, I'm like, hey, that bothered me. And it allows me instead to swallow it and just sit there and get pissed
Mm,
For
mm,
her to
mm.
just go, what's wrong? What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. I'm fine. Why would anything be wrong? You know, what the hell would I
It's
have to
such
get
a
pissed off about?
Yeah, it's such a common thing that we do. Like you can go to a restaurant or the supermarket and just watch. You can see people do that all the time. And the more you become aware of yourself, the more you can notice it in other people, because I believe that everybody we see in the world, including you and I looking at each other right now, is just a reflection of who you are or who you want to be or who you don't want to be. And so that's one of those things. And one of the things I really, really believe is the more that you can be honest with yourself and the people that you're in direct relationship with, the more that you're able to be honest with the people in the more common world. And the more you're going to be able to, the more love you can give yourself. Because anger is my thing. Like this is my stages go confusion, anger, like blink, like spiked, like, oh, Ryan's confused, oh, Ryan's angry. Like that's how it goes. And then it's a hard spike up and then a hard spike down through shame. And then I can kind of begin to fix it. And it's one of the things that I work on all the time. And the more that I work on it, the more that when it happens with people out in the world, the more that I'm able to be like, okay, I definitely understand that because I'm that. And I'm able to give that person love and give them understanding so that they can see that too. And because it's just one of those things, it's just like, because when you just start, just like you said, you're just like, whoa, what's wrong? There's nothing wrong. Fuck you. There's nothing wrong. Like, and then we get all angry and we say stupid stuff.
Yeah.
And then of course that person gets triggered and it's just like this freaking, it's like putting two people that don't like each other in a dryer.
Yeah.
It's just hot and you can't get control of anything and you're just tumbling over and it's just ridiculous. And so the more we can notice that, and it's like, then there's nothing to build up. You're just like, oh, I just, you ate the last of the chocolate in the refrigerator and you didn't offer me any. And I know that that's a silly thing to be triggered by, but I am triggered by it. And I understand that has nothing to do with you. And I'm working on it currently. And I appreciate you allowing me to share that with you. And like, it's like, oh, that was way better. Like, it's just, and of course it's not a perfect thing. I'll use an example. This is what happened to me last night. It's something that I want to share about because it's important to me because it's something that I don't want to be at all. So I have a 2-month-old and I have a 2.5-year-old. And the 2.5-year-old is this perfect little angel until we have the baby. And now she's just an uncontrollable ball of jealousy and rage, which is I like look at her and I'm like, oh my God, that's totally me. Like it's me. Like on my worst days, that's me. And she's not that all the time, yet it's just hard to, it's challenging. It's the toddlers, the baby's easy. My toddler's the challenging portion. And so last night we all get out of the shower, all cleaned up. And my wife's got a towel on and my daughter is naked and my baby Pippin is like laying on the bed and Charlie's butt naked and just goes over and sits right on her head. And I'm like, no. And I like reach over and I like kind of push her off and she like flails backwards and she's like, and she like laughs and then she looks down and then she just kicks my baby in the head twice, like heel kicks, boom, boom. And I freak out because like my 2-month-old and I get scared and then I'm like, why? But then I go to that place of like, why would you do that? And then I redlined and I grabbed my toddler because we have 2 queen size beds side by side because we have 4 people often sleeping in our room. And so I pick her up and I just launch her over to the other bed where all the blankets and laundry is piled up. But it wasn't in a loving or caring way. Like I freaking catapulted her to the other bed. And my wife's like, Ryan. And I was like, McCare, back off. I was just, you need, and because I could just feel it. Like, I don't need you coming at me. Like, I'm so angry right now. And then I come out of the room and we all calm down. I get my daughter to sleep. I take Charlie and I put her to sleep. And then McCare comes in and she's like, you scare me when you do that.
Yeah.
And I was like, ugh. And I was like, well, I was scared too. And she's like, how could you be scared? She's like, I just feel rage from you. And I was like, I had to like stop because I was like, and then again, I was just getting angry at her because she was just expressing to me. And I was just like, because I had spiked up into anger and then I'm coming down through shame. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I do know what you're
really,
saying.
really, really feeling that shame. And it's just like talking, like being able to hear people when you're emotional. And then she's like, and so I was just like, and then she's like, oh, what did she say? She's like, and I was like, I'm scared. She's like, how are you just scared? She's like, I don't understand that. She's like, I just feel rage from you. And then I was like, wait a second. So then I stopped and I was like, okay, we got to separate and not talk. I put my headphones in, I listen to some music, I calm down, I watch a video or whatever. And then I come back and I said, you're not wrong. I said, I was very angry. And she's like, well, tell me about the fear. Like, I don't understand how you feel scared. How does you tossing your daughter feel scary? And I was like, no, that part doesn't feel scary. That part feels angry. I said, the part where I watch my baby girl get kicked in the face by this. And at the moment she gets kicked, the thing that's kicking her is irrelevant. It could be a 40-year-old dude. It could be the 2-year-old daughter. It's for me, like in that fight or flight, it's like something that I need to get away from her to keep her safe. And like with this unprocessed stuff that we carry around, I mean, I'll be 40 next year, or in April, which I guess is next year. And it's just like these things from like, you carry this stuff around. It's like these triggers. Like I have to fight. I spent 20 years in the military. There's something, you just got to get it away. You got to separate it. And so it's just like, but I don't want to do that. And my wife is like, just if she's like, if I'm scared, then imagine how scared she is. And so it's just like, ooh, and the last thing I want is for my daughter to grow up scared of me. And it's just like, and I'm not going to even pretend this is an isolated incident, but I don't even need to say that. Anybody who's listening to this can judge however they want. That's their stuff. But it's just like, by me sharing the story with you, it's an opportunity to be like, Ryan, I don't want to be this way. That's not how I want to show up. And I'm like replaying it in my head. Charlie gets kicked, or she kicks Pippin because she's needing something, like that's her crying for help. And so then instead I can like wrap her up and like give her love and just carry her away in a loving way. Like that's what I want, like in a perfect scenario, like that's where I want to be. But I have to share this story, and I have to be able to, while in an emotional state, be able to notice, like listen to my wife, because she's also crying for help. And I believe this Tony Robbins, there's a really cool video that I watched. It's called Value Chains. And he talks about being, it's like the most important part about business or relationships is being able to receive information. And then he says the 2 types of communication that you can receive, and there's nuance down from that, the kinds of things that you can receive. But he says you can either receive cries for help or loving responses. And my daughter kicking my other daughter, that's a cry for help. My wife looking at me saying, I only feel rage from you. Like, of course that's a cry for help. It is. But my interpretation is like, why are you attacking me? But that's not what happened. She's just asking me for help. She's like, I don't want this to be like that. She's like, you're an amazing father. But there's these times, and I have a 17-year-old son as well that lives here, who's also like this amazing mirror of me when I was 17. It's like, yeah, whatever, Dad. I just want to freaking chill and play video games, And it's like, I want him to step up and be an adult, like so bad. But it's like, and so it's just like these times, and you're just like, and when you see those things, this is really like, okay, where do I trip offline? Where do I scream for help? Or how am I not asking for help? Does that make sense? I know it's kind of like a long
100%
story. Yeah. And so it's just, but my toddler's been like this amazing mirror for me, especially in the anger department, and anger and jealousy, like those 2 departments for me. Like she displays those 2 things, and those 2 things, like I'm so triggered by that because I am that. Like those are my things. Like I see something, I get confused. Why isn't it like this instead? Because I want that other thing. And then I just, and so
man,
just,
I do know really well, and this is what I'm talking about by like sharing and inspiring and stuff, is that like I don't have kids, but I can flip that script about half an inch and say that in the beginning of this, when I was going red line mad, like seriously day after day after day, it was from fear. It was because I have this amazing woman that I am in love with, who I've been together with for 14 years. And it's starting to get to that point where I'm afraid of where we go from here. And so when I got afraid, when the communication wasn't right, when it didn't all fall in, and I didn't have something else to chill me out chemically, bam, red line, like just pissed, just, in that exact state. And she's like, you're scary. Why are you acting like this? And I'm like, I don't know. Like literally, I can't always in the moment. And it's this whole I had another buddy of mine, Nicholas Spone, on here, and we were talking about fear versus love based. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
he throws everything as either fear versus love based. And those are your options there and how you respond to things like that. Just like you just said, are you afraid of it and you chuck her across the room, or are you, which like 100% is me. Like I
For sure.
totally see that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you face up with that combativeness with love, which is what it needs? And sometimes that
Mm-hmm.
can be really tough,
It is. It's super hard.
especially when, like in my case, we're fighting because what she needs is more love, but you get you start a fight on that. So
Mm-hmm.
like that's the correct answer is a hug and a cuddle,
Mm-hmm.
and but it's like, but I'm pissed off at you right now. And
For
it's
sure. And I think too, like in that cycle, like when you're talking about for fear and love, and it's the same thing, like it's crying for help because I'm scared of not getting something or losing something. And then you have just two people like, I'm crying for help. Well, I'm crying for help more. Well, I'm crying for help more. And then it's like this thing. And then it's just who can notice that that's happening first. And then who can be the first one to be like, okay, we both need something. What is it that we need? How can we both get this? And then just like having a discussion about that. And something I really want to make clear to the listeners too is that fear is not an excuse to act stupidly. And Joel and I think what we're really doing here is us discussing these things and really admitting who we are and how we get angry is us doing our best.
yeah,
And when I say doing our best, because we can always be doing better, is doing our best to take responsibility for this, because I absolutely want to take responsibility for, and like, it's like when I think about it, and I remember picking my daughter up, and it's not, I didn't chuck her 10 feet. It was like a 3 to 4 foot flood. There's a massive pile of sheets and blankets that we just done laundry. We're getting ready to make the beds. And I remember seeing it easily. And I was like, oh, I can just toss her right there. And so in my head, in my fight or flight response, I feel totally justified. You know what
right.
I'm saying?
It's a safe spot to land.
Yeah.
You're like, yes, this
Yeah.
needs to
I
get
feel
away, but that's a safe
totally,
spot.
yeah.
I totally get it.
I feel totally justified. However, it is so important if you want to remain in a relationship with somebody to honor how they saw it too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because like I just saw me jumping to the rescue, the superhero coming out, scooping Charlie up and tossing her into the blankets. But my wife saw a violent explosion of rage and freaking, she saw something very different. And so we could argue that nuance all day, because when I play it in my head right now, I can go back to that point and it's like, yeah, that was obviously the right choice. But then I acted the best I had with the awareness I had of myself and based on my experience. But now with this new experience, I can say, Ryan, next time this happens, because it's going to happen again, siblings fight, just like adults fight, just like anybody fights. And Ryan, the next time it happens, scoop Charlie up, give her a hug, and just take her away. Like, can you do that? And I can be like, motherfuck, yes, I can. Like, I can figure that out. Like, I can get there. And so I just really, really want the listeners to be aware that this is not an excuse to act poorly. However, take your poor actions and learn from them every single day, because I'm going to get off this podcast and in like 15 minutes, I'm going to screw something up, because that's just how we are. And it's just like to rinse and repeat that process of learning over and over and over. And then just, get on here and then share with somebody. Dude, Joel, this is what I did. I tossed my little girl yesterday, and it's just like, oh man, I totally understand how this is going. How can we build from this? How can we be better? And then it's just like, making this podcast is an example of how we can be better, so that's why I show up. And I appreciate you having me here. And I appreciate you hearing my story and not judging it, because that's also important, because I don't want to fight you, dude. We're cool.
No,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So, oh man.
You were in the Navy. I ain't fighting you. I'll lose.
No, man, dude, I'm so overweight and out of shape right now. It's ridiculous. My knees hurt. I can barely kneel down. It sucks. It's all good.
But no, I mean, the appreciation goes both ways, because that conversation is like, so what we don't see, or a long time ago, in my relationship with not only my wife, who was then my girlfriend, but with other people, we would go out and you would see somebody in your circle, or somebody would see you have a bad day, or like you got pissed off and had that quick response. and now somebody thinks that like you're a total asshole based on like a quick response that you saw without any context kind of thing. And so like one of the things that, and that's the kind of stuff that when it happens at home, we keep in, you know, as shame, because that's not our best self and we don't want
Right.
people to see that. And so one of the side effects again of this whole project was to try to, or to actually tries bullshit, it gives you a way out, to actually do a better job of becoming the person privately that I am publicly. So, you know, if I'm behind closed doors and, you know, my wife and I get in a fight and I go to that place that I'm not proud of, like no one could ever see that and I could keep that in and that could just be what it's going to be, but it's never going to get better.
For sure.
And like, it doesn't matter what everybody else thinks you are. That's internally who you and the people important to you think you are or know you are. And so, you know, just this conversation, just being like, look, we all do something like that. You might not see the whole thing, or you might also realize that if you see something, it might not be the whole thing. And so, you know, coming back to that place, especially when you want to communicate this about being in a place of non-judgment and just letting people express themselves and then just going like, look, I get it. Like I set out to publicly, you know, not do any of these things that I'm vices on. And on day 2, you know, having to jump on the mic and go, hey, I know it's only day 2, but I had an emotional thing and I didn't know how to deal with it. And I smoked a joint. Sorry. But at the same time, does that mean I'm done? No. You know, I'm going to jump right back in and keep going because now I learned how to hit that. You know, and same thing, like each step, each mistake is reframed into a learning opportunity. And I talk a lot about reframing and a lot about opportunities and being grateful and stuff. And I had to tell my wife, and I think that, you know, this is the same situation with you. I had to tell my wife, like, I'm sorry that we had this big fight, but I'm actually happy that it happened because it led us to this discussion. As uncomfortable as it was, as terrible as it was, now I know that this is the thing that needs to happen next time.
That right there, I believe, is the literal night and day of having a healthy marriage and a freaking awful divorce. It's literally the difference, is acknowledging what can we learn from this instead of like, this is your fault for this thing that happened 6 years ago. Oh, you're bringing that up again. Well, you know, instead of doing that, it's like,
right.
You know, that's the difference. It's literally the difference. It's like an on and off switch between pent up bullshit and then like, no, let's learn from this. Let's be better. But this, one of the things you said earlier is reminding me of like when you're going out and being in judgment of people. I was having this conversation with my very good friend. Her name's Lauren Stark. She's a client and a colleague of mine, and she works in production in San Francisco. And she sent me this post, and we had this really cool conversation about the 3 roles that we play: the perpetrator, the victim, or the rescuer. Like these 3 things. She's like, us as humans, a perpetrator is one who's like instigating or whatever. The rescuer is the one that's like, oh, I'll save you from this person. And the victim's like, oh, this is all your fault. Like, you know, those are my terrible improv examples of that. But anyways, she's like, is it possible for us to not play one of those roles? And so then we were like, had this really interesting thought experiment about thinking about this. I'm like, so what's the thing? And so the one thing that we came up with is like coming back from that and just observing. You know, can you just observe? Can you stop perpetrating, stop trying to rescue, and stop being victim to your reality? But instead, how can you just observe it and learn from it? And so I think we can, when we realize we're playing one of those roles, we can be like, whoa, because rescuing people isn't necessarily helpful unless they're like, you know, one hand off a cliff or they're going to fall off something, like, or, you know, granny's like under a frickin' flipped Yukon or something. And so like, I mean, but like the kind where it's like, you see this on social media a lot where it's like you social justice warriors are like, I'm going to save you even though da 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 da. And I know I'm about to offend everybody with my terrible, but that's okay. It's my stuff. Send an email to me. We'll work it out. And then, you know, or are you the one that's perpetrating? Are you trolling people? Are you instigating just to get a rise out of so you can feel something? Or are you victim to the everything? We're like, oh, I would be so much better if this wasn't like that. And so whenever you notice you're playing one of those roles, how can you take a step back and observe yourself? How am I feeling when this is happening? How do my emotions begin to bubble up? Like, for example, I talk about me going from like even neutral Ryan to confused Ryan to angry Ryan. Because I know that's my process. That's like all the times I'm triggered, that almost always happens with confusion. I have no idea what's going on right now. And then I fight or flight, like right there. And I spent a lot of years in the military, and I played competitive ice hockey before I joined. So like anger and aggression is like a very easy state for me to go for. And for a really, really long time, I convinced myself that I was very, what's the word I'm looking for? Effective from that space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Effective at being aggressive to eject the things out of my life that I don't want. Somebody comes into my workspace at work and they're trying to get me to do something. I get aggressive. They go away. It's like, yeah, I don't have to deal with that now. But I'm not building any bridges doing that.
Right.
And so from there, it's like, so if I can stop, it's like, okay, I notice I'm confused. I notice I get angry. And then on the way down, I got to come back through. I come through a point of realization. Oh, I totally screwed that up. Oh, I'm a terrible person. And then I got to wallow in that shame a little bit. And then it's like, oh, I don't have to be shameful about this. I can just go and talk to this person and calm down and learn from this. But that's my process. And so the more you can, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask, like, so there's another step that at least we try to use in hypnosis is, so in the moment, have you done any practice on recognizing your state? Because you can identify it. So you can identify later that you go to confusion first. So have you taken any time like to manifest that state? Like in a meditative state or in a sober state, or when you're not having stimulus is what I mean by sober.
For sure.
And so you think about that state and you think about that feeling and how it physically manifests, and then start to practice recognizing that state and giving yourself a left turn.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Like for me, again, this comes again when Holly and I would fight. And I actually get to say would fight right now because it's not been overall a great length of time, but when it was as frequent as it was, I mean, we're on 2 weeks, give or take, maybe even a little more without that like screaming fight, which is huge and awesome.
That's huge.
And, we got so much growth. And thank you, because, part of that is in terms of some of the advice that I got from you. And, but one of the things that I do is when I go from, on that escalating scale up, my chest gets tight, shoulders get tight, take bigger, deeper breaths. And so like, these are physical manifestations of my trip to the red zone. So if I take some time and can, and it's a work in progress, when I feel those physical steps, I go, you got to stop. You got to give me some time. We have to separate, which this is something my wife and I are working on, because we fight. I want to go away so that I don't get to red zone, but she wants to chase so that she fixes the problem.
See, my wife roles are opposite. I'm the chaser. She's the escaper. Like,
Yeah.
And it's rare. We have a safe word.
Yeah. I've heard you talk about that before.
Yeah. We have a safe word.
Yeah.
And that works for the most part with us until I notice that I use it just to shut her up so I can keep going. So, and that's something that I'll fall into every once in a while, because I'll feel myself getting mad. I'll say the safe word and then she'll stop and I'm like, oh, she's stopping. And then I'll reattack, be like, whoa, okay. And then it's like, it's freaking ridiculous. But it's like, because it's a challenging process because we want to fight or flight so bad.
Yeah.
We really do.
And so I've learned like where I'm going. And, so for a while it was, I'm going to run away. I get it. We want to solve this problem, but I'm going to run away because we're not going to solve it. We're going to end up getting to my best self where I'm just screaming and you're just crying and, we're screaming back and forth and there's nothing productive happening. And then I'm going to have to, then it's going to go from being a 20-minute fight to a 3 days fight because one of us said something that we didn't mean, we didn't really feel like wasn't true, but now we have to try to fix it because it came out.
For sure.
And so I have found that, and through trying to get her on the same page, like when I go away, don't walk around the house and talk shit. Don't follow me and go again, because then we'll go, up there, and then coming back, 30 minutes later after calming down, or even the next morning, and being like, look,
Mm-hmm.
this is where I was. This is why I felt that way. And now we can move on and learn from there. So that's
Yeah,
just it sounds like you're pretty aware of your
for
process.
sure.
And
So yeah,
so,
so one of the things, I think the question you're asking is, so what I know about my process. So as far as my like, okay, I'm confused. I get angry. I realize, okay, this is my fault. I feel shame. I'm in acceptance, and then I can kind of go to peace and then work with it.
mhm.
So one of the things in the process that I've worked, and the school of learning I went to, is when you're like, oh, I'm in shame right now. Oh, I just know the next step is accepting it and then moving on. Or, oh, I'm in anger right now. Okay, I know. Oh, I was just confused. Oh, I'm confused. Oh, if I don't take that left turn like you're saying, like I'm going to go to anger. And
Right.
then I'm going to have to go through. And if I go to anger, I'm going to have to go to shame per se.
Right.
And so it's like, but I know that that's the process. And so it's one of the things that people can, just like you're asking to, like, have you really taken that time to be an observer of that and like write it down, like write your steps on a note card, carry it around with you if you have to. So you'd be like, oh, I'm in shame right now. Because some people, their steps, my steps is like a 7-step process or something
Mhm.
per se. Some people have a 3-step process. Some people go from anger to acceptance. Boom. They don't feel any shame at all. They just move past it. And maybe, or whatever. And some people got a 23-step process, which isn't wrong. It's nothing wrong with it. And, I'm sure if I got detailed with mine. So it's just like beginning to, but it's like when I can notice I'm in confusion, I can be like, oh, Ryan, you're just confused, and expressing those cycles as well with your partner. And they can be like, hey, Joel, are you a little confused right now? Can we help not get to the next spot? It's like, oh, maybe I am. But then, but there's also a trial and error with that. It's like, fuck you, I'm not confused. Like,
Right.
it's like, and then you're like, oh crap, I am confused. And I just went to anger by you asking me that. You were just doing your best to help. I know that outburst has nothing to do with you. That's all me. And so it's just more and more of that practice, just like
Yeah.
anything else. It's like learning to hit a golf ball. And,
Yeah.
the first time
Each
you do
time
it,
you,
it's terrible.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. Oh, and can
Yeah.
you imagine the first, I'm sure you can imagine because you've probably done it, the first time you went like, hey, wife, I'm sorry that all that happened, but I'm glad it did because this. And then she looks
Oh,
around and says,
dude.
oh, how the hell are you going to be thankful for, having this big
Yeah.
fight and screaming and storming off and not being
Mm.
here for an hour and da-da-da-da. I'm like, because if you reframe it, then we can
Yeah,
fix it.
for
So
sure.
be ready for that not to go well if you're
Yeah.
going to
And I
try that
think
for the
that,
first time,
oh man,
but do it, it gets better.
it's interesting because when I met my wife, McCare, she was already involved in this work. So
Mhm.
she very, very much understands it. And we are, for the most part, very good at holding each other accountable. And like my ex, it was like, once a day, once every 2 days, once a week. Like we fought all the freaking time and
Right.
we didn't fix it. We finally just said, screw this, I'm out,
Right.
left it. And then, which was fine. There's nothing wrong with that because that was just part of our process. Like that was me like saying, I just can't do this anymore. Like something's going to break. Like how many dishes do I have to break? How many pairs of glasses do I have to pull off my face and twist in half? Like for this to be enough. And it's just like sometimes, so I really believe that you can either leave the trigger behind, or you can figure out in yourself what the trigger resembles and then really work on that too, so you can remain. And those are the two ways. And in that instance, I left the trigger and I walked away from it. And now I look back on it and I'm super grateful for it because I'm in an amazing relationship now. And I have an amazing relationship with my children and my son. And but it's just like like you said, there's always more to do, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've come a long way from kicking garbage cans and throwing dishes and being a freaking loud, arrogant ass to like a slightly quieter, arrogant ass. So and I have to really realize that. Like, Ryan, what's your thing? Anger. Boom. Right here. That's me. Like, I
Mhm.
know it is. And the more I can express that, the more I can really own it, the more I can really, really, really look out for confusion. And that confusion stuff goes way, way back into my childhood.
Oh yeah.
Stuff directly dialed. I know exactly where it comes from. And it's just, and it's part of that really, really the more you can know who you are, the more you can accept who you are, the more you can just be like, I don't even care about anybody else. Go ahead and be mad. I still love you. It's all good, because I get it, because I've done the work. I understand me, and I understand that I'm just seeing through my lens what it looks like when I'm like that. Does that make sense? So,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
yeah, man.
absolutely. So, something came up through there, and I know one of the original things I want to talk about, and we were kind of digging into, but when you're changing, like in a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
this process was definitely, I did it for me,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that my relationship would change because I needed to be a better version of myself.
Mm-hmm.
After I laid out the parameters of the project, my wife, of course, it would kind of be awkward if she didn't, but she jumped in on the process with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so this brought us through this whole piece. It was kind of this weird thing of like doing something together, but not together.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you have to do your own thing inside. And I kind of got to a point where I had to take a step back and say, like, look, I'm trying to deal with my shit, but I can't deal with your shit at the same time or
Mm-hmm.
for you. Or if you're not going to deal with your shit, I can't be trying to help you deal with your shit. And so there's kind of an intermediary step there between, dealing with it or not, or separating the person and taking that step back and saying, like, look, I got to take, it was a very short-lived step because the message was received in my home, but it was like, look, I can't do this. You have too much shit that's coming out to me, and I have too
Mm-hmm.
much shit that's coming out to you. So we need to deal with our own shit. I'm not sure if I formulated that really as a question
Yeah.
so
What's the
much,
what's the
but like,
question
but
exactly?
like, what do you, I mean, how did you ever have a point where you guys felt that way? It would probably be you on the other end since she was a little farther on, or like, how do you approach that? Like, if you're doing everything you can and the other person isn't quite there, and sometimes you just have to take a step. Is that,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I
I
don't know
think
if
I'm
I'm
getting
digging to the right
no,
thing.
no, it's perfect. It's perfect. So I'm going to how do you make space for you when you think their stuff is theirs? Is that kind of where we're getting at?
Yeah, or how do you come to the point? Maybe how do you come to the point where you're like, look, this isn't the right thing for me.
Right.
But
Oh, okay.
like before, like the step in between peacing out, and moving on to a new relationship.
Okay.
So
So I'm gonna talk philosophy for a second because this is what I believe. I believe no matter what, it's always your shit. So if somebody's coming at you with their perceived stuff and you're not able to deal with whatever they're bringing, like that's your shit. The fact that you're not able to deal with it, like that's yours. Your inability to cope. Does that make sense?
yeah,
So but then you're like, hey, I need space, and I think that's the right thing. And so these are the things this is a really simple answer to that, which is more complicated, but we can look at it in these terms of really simple. If you have time, energy, love, money, whatever the product is to give to the person, then give it. I'll have time for you. I have energy for you. I have money for you. I have whatever it is, whatever form of currency, and then give it. And if you don't, then don't. And so one of the things, it's kind of like you you and Holly starting this experiment. I'm doing my best to kind of close all these loops. You're like, hey, I want to do this experiment. And I'm assuming you said, I would really like you to do it with me. And then she's like, I would like to do that with you. Here's the parameters. And these are the rules. And I like to call it having a rules discussion. Does that make sense?
mm-hmm.
Because in everything in life, we can look at it like a game. Like we're going to play the impulse experiment for 30 days. Okay. These are the rules of the game. And I read this really cool book. McCare and I actually read this book when we first started dating together. It was called The Heart of Love by Dr. Jeffrey D. Martini. And he's a very famous psychologist, life coach guy. He's really dope. Anyways, in the book, he said, have these discussions and then play by these rules as long as you both want to. And then when you're like, oh, we've been playing Monopoly for a really long time and I don't really want to use a free parking rule anymore, can we have a new rules discussion? And then you're like, oh, yeah, well, I had this other rule that I saw online. Would you like to try this instead? No, I kind of want to do this rule. Oh, that's cool with me. Have your little agreement and then continue and then play that game, the new version of the game. And so you said, like yourself, you said like a couple weeks in, you're like, I had to pull back and I had to kind of adjust rules. And then I had to let her know, like, hey, that's your stuff. You got to go do that because I got to do this for me. Like, you can look at that as another rules discussion. We're going to alter this slightly. I'm going to go do me while you go do you. And then you both play that game as long as you both want to. And then you continue that process until one person's like, I just don't want to do this anymore. And I think one of the most amazing lessons that I've learned as far as relationship goes is that my wife and I, and we both know this, and sometimes it's not always easy to accept, but we don't need each other.
Yeah.
We want to be together. We want to continue to play this game together. And when we fight, even when we're angry or like we're both coming down and the fight's kind of over, we're like remind each other, like, hey, I still want to do this with you. I want to live this life with you. But don't get it twisted. There's never, ever, 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 ever. Can you hear that? No, don't worry about it. Somebody just started a vacuum like right outside my window. Anyways, there's never a point ever when you need somebody to be whole. And we use that as a manipulation a lot in relationships. I don't know what I'm going to do if you leave. You know what you're going to do? You're going to figure it the fuck out. That's what you're going to do.
Right. Yeah.
You're going to figure it out. And I think that's so, so important that even when somebody's bringing their stuff at you and you're like, that's your stuff. They're a trigger, but the anger, the sadness, the whatever emotion, the joy, like if somebody comes and they're like, buy you a freaking sweet bottle of scotch and you like feel all excited. I just received this gift from the person. The joy you're still feeling still comes from inside you. It's based on your experiences and your level of awareness for yourself. That's it. And you have chosen to place yourself inside a vicinity of this person that gives you gifts in this way. Like that was your choice. So like, I believe from an energetic standpoint, I place myself in the vicinity of my wife, McCare, who gives the things to me that I enjoy. And I will continue to stay in this relationship until I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. And it can be like, it's that simple. We make it really ugly and we muddle it and we make it really after school special or these rom-coms and we make it really, really weird and stuff because we all have problems. We all have flaws. And at the end of the day, I choose to bring my pros and cons into my relationship with McCare's pros and cons. I choose it in spite of it. I don't love this about her. She doesn't love this about me. We're going to agree to these rules anyway. Does that make sense?
Oh,
and so you continue to do that until you don't want to anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's that simple. Like that's the line. And so it's kind of like we had this when we first started dating, we had fuck yeah Sunday. Do you want to do this? Yeah, nope. The answer is no, because I couldn't be like right away. Like my reaction wasn't like, let's go do that. You know? And so Sundays was like that. And we have kids now and we have 3 kids in the house and a dog. We don't do fuck yeah Sundays anymore. But we're talking about moving from Hawaii to the mainland.
Oh, wow.
And we're really like, hey, what do you think about, and yesterday she's like, well, what do you think about moving to San Diego to be near my family? And we kind of talked about it. And then we were like, oh, this would be cool. And this would be a benefit. And this would be neat. And then I was like, hold on, wait. I was like, are you excited about moving to San Diego? She's like, no. I was like, we're not going to San Diego. And it's like, it's that easy. It's just, we don't want to justify it. We don't want to justify staying with people. Like you can ask yourself, do I want to be with this person? Yes, I do.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is just, and I think that one of the things I like to do in my work and my coaching is like the step one is just kind of building awareness for self. It's like an acknowledgement or an assessment or a check-in on a scale of 1 to 10. How do you rate my life? And right now a 10 popped into my chest because I'm freaking having this conversation we're having, like I'm 10 of 10 right now because this is my favorite thing. My wife and daughters are out doing wife and daughter stuff. I know that they're safe. My son freaking drove down to the store today and brought me coffee and creamer. And it's like, dude, 10 out of 10 morning. My life is badass. So, but like last night, I was like at a 4. I just tossed my daughter. And so one of the things is like on a scale of 1 to 10, 10. Acknowledge that number, own it. On a scale of 1 to 10, how'd you, just a 4. Boom, there it is. Second question, what things could I be open to improving that number? And well, I could do yoga. I could exercise. I could be more open with the people I'm in relationship with, whatever. Third question, what lies are you telling yourself to not act on question 2? And it's like, if it's like, oh man, I've been lying about wanting to be in a relationship with this person. Maybe that's one of your things. I'm not happy when I'm with this person. I'm convincing myself that I am. I'm convincing myself that I need them. The answer is you never need anybody else but you to be whole, ever. It's just true. And there's a lot of people that hate that because they want that other person to need them very, very bad because of whatever gap they're missing in their life. And so, yeah, I know that was a very long answer, but I hope that all made sense. So,
Yeah, no, it did perfectly, especially brought it back to a real nice point there. Like, if like it's, what is it if it's something else that someone else is doing to fill that proverbial hole? Like, that's not the right way to fill that hole.
no.
And that keeps you pigeonholed with that person instead of taking a step back, looking at how you can fill that hole, and that person can stand next to that hole and be on the edge of it with you and be together, as opposed to being forced to that person. Yeah.
Because we see this in our culture a lot, especially on social media. When you have everybody's pointing their finger across the aisle to the other side saying, this is your fault, you're part of the problem, this is your fault, this is your fault, your fault, your fault, your fault, your fault. We live in a very, very, very victim-centric culture. Our judiciary system is based on proving who's the victim. Like, that's what it's based on, proving up. You're the victim. There's your settlement money. Congratulations. I hope $249,000 can help you be whole, because it's just BS. So, where was I going with that? I just kind of lost that. So, but I think the most important thing we can do is, instead of pointing across the aisle, instead of being like, we need to fix the country because this is wrong and red versus blue and blah, 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 blah. Like, what relationships inside of your home can you fix? Like, what problems, what things can you patch? What bridges can you build inside of your own home? Because if we all did that, if we all took care of us, if we all did our best to leave our houses as whole beings, we wouldn't fight as much outside of our homes. We wouldn't need so much outside of our homes, outside of ourselves.
Oh, I 100% agree with that. As I've gone from over really the last like 8-9 months since I've kind of started, this change journey or whatever you want to call it. I don't pick fights, whether that's on social media, whether that's at a gathering. I don't look for that guy that disagrees with me to go tell him that he's an idiot, because I used to,
right?
For sure. And not only, that kind of goes along with my whole belief structure as a whole being put on top of its head, spun around, and flicked back out into the universe to believe that things like universal connection and that kind of stuff are possible. Because I used to be what I would lovingly refer to as a militant atheist. You can sum that up in one word: asshole.
Yeah, I'm reading a book that talks about, it's called "Everybody is Wrong About God." And it's a very post-theistic view of like the way this guy thinks society can be, like, without organized religion.
Right.
And he's like, atheists need to shut up just as much as theists need to shut up.
I agree.
Yeah, because it's like if I didn't play golf, would I walk around and say I'm a non-golfer? And I think that's like the most perfect analogy. Like, you're just walking around telling people what you're not. Instead of, and he says the problem, one of the biggest problems he sees with all these labels, whether you're a Catholic or a lesbian or a heterosexual 40-year-old dude, he's like, we have these labels for everybody, and then we see this label, and then we automatically start to make assumptions based on what we assume comes with that label. And if we could let go of all these labels, we could just come to the party and be like, hey, I'm Ryan, I'm a person, and then begin.
Yeah, right.
Fresh,
Right.
And then you can like start fresh, building those rules for your game inside of that brand new relationship that didn't come with any baggage, and then you can just learn about the person from there, and you get to build your own assumptions and prejudices about them like in real time. So
Yeah. Well, yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And you can have those, and this is something, not a relationship with my wife, but in a relationship with an extended family member. Like I have someone who I am around at, Thanksgiving, Christmas, family meals, and things like that, who is, politically as far away from me as you can
Mm-hmm.
be, and likes to express them on it. And, they have even like dropped unspeakable words like the F word and the N word at the
Right.
freaking Thanksgiving table. And we've got into spats over that. And like, as a relationship point, like it's very tough for me because if you don't identify each human being as having their own intrinsic worth that is all equal based on nothing else than the fact that you're a human, like I fundamentally have an issue with that.
Mm-hmm.
However, I have to engage this. I mean, I guess I don't have to, but within the parameters of my life, I choose to engage with this person being in my life.
For
So
sure.
then is it his shit or my shit if I start the fight? If something pops up and is said, why is it right in the middle of a podcast? Somebody wants to freaking talk to me.
Dude, it's all good. It's all good. I turn my notifications off and I turn my Bluetooth off on my phone, or it'll blow up. It'll blow me up in here.
Yeah.
And then it's like, because like my wife's like, hey, did something happen on a merry-go-round? Because Charlie's freaking out. And I was like, I've never taken on one. And why am I talking to you right now? I'm on the thing. So it's like, we're both dealing with it. It's hilarious.
So, but it was my own shit that like, I really can't just ignore what that dude said. Like, yeah, I mean, I agree. You should never use that word, and it offends me because it means you intrinsically don't care for those people,
Right.
But how is that going to serve me and our relationship right
sure.
now? Like, am I going to convince you not to do it? No. Am I
Mhm.
going to do anything else but determine that you're an asshole and I'm an asshole, and now we have problems, and the beneficial or the mutual person between the two of us now like doesn't engage either one of us, and it's all weird. It's the same kind of idea.
Right. And I think instead of asking ourselves, is this their shit or my shit? I like to ask, and this is a practice because no, babe, this is your shit. Like, you need to back off. Like, I like to practice instead saying, how can I take responsibility for this?
Yeah. Right.
And sometimes taking responsibility is just letting it go. And to challenge you, if you believe all people have intrinsic value, then it's your responsibility to find out how that person has intrinsic value to prove yourself right.
Oh yeah.
Does
Well,
that make sense?
and that's where the difficulty becomes, is because
For sure.
well, with this particular person, their intrinsic value is huge in my world.
For sure.
But there's this like core right at the center middle of it idea that we don't align on, which makes the relationship really difficult. Like on, like A, B, and C, we 100% disagree, and then on the entire rest of the alphabet we're cool. Or
For sure.
like, and if it was like we disagreed on Q, X, and Y, it wouldn't be a big deal. But I can just can you brush A, B, and C aside for because you're not going to change A, B, and C in either person. So if you still want to engage in that relationship, can you brush something so important aside just to benefit each of your relationships and those around you?
Yeah, and I think that's the answer to that question is the most valuable thing you can find, and yet it's really hard to find that answer.
Right.
It's just one of those things, and it's like and I think one of the things too is that sometimes you're going to say, okay, I think one of the reasons we get triggered by our own stuff and we get kind of upset and we get triggered because our belief that everybody has intrinsic value is being challenged.
Oh yeah, sure.
Who's standing in front of us, and then you become, because your brain wants you to be right, because when you're right, you're safe, and you're going to stay alive. Like that's what your brain. That's how it works. And it's like, oh man, I'm wrong right now. And then that frustration, that fight or flight says, I'm going to come and save this. And it wants to bust out. That fight or flight wants out so bad. And, because it relates whomever you're speaking of to the saber-toothed tiger that's like lingering outside of the cave, that's waiting to eat you when you're leaving the cave to go find food. And it's like a challenging dichotomy that we all possess. And I think one of the things too that can be very interesting is if us as human beings can learn to become comfortable not having answers to everything.
Oh
And
yeah.
sometimes, yeah, and it's like, okay, this, I like to use gravity. There's a law for gravity. Like we have a law of gravity, but it's based on this theory. And it works inside of this theory, the theory of relativity, right? But as soon as you take it into time and space and make this like the quantum theory, like gravity no longer works. They don't have a solution for it. So it's something they're still working on. They're like, yeah, we have this law, but we know it could be better, and we're constantly working on that. I'm not saying that science is the way to do it, and your religion, people can have your stuff. I'm okay with that. I don't need you to be whatever it is. Yet it's just like even in a religious setting, like questioning that, like how could this be better? Like how could we be looking at this in a different way? And like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it totally makes sense because that's another shift in my dichotomy is like I didn't want to believe in something if if it wasn't based in the scientific method. So like me, my previous thinking was like, okay, scientific method says here's an experiment. I can tell you how to do it as long as you do it the same way I did it. You're going to have the same general results, and we're going to know that that thing is a fact.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, cool. That's great, and I still believe highly in that process. But what about the experiments where we don't have a solid fact as an answer, but we also don't have a solid fact as to this doesn't happen this way?
For sure. Well, I
And
think
so, like, that's exactly where you gotta, like I used to have to fight. Like, well, we don't know the answer, so your answer is just a guess, and you shouldn't have any faith in that.
the interesting thing about, hey, as long as you do it exactly like this, you should have this exact result. The thing that's different is a person viewing that experiment. And that sometimes we can be looking at two exactly same things. We're watching the experiment like literally happen. And then we're writing our report independently from each other, and then they're going to look different because our lenses are different, which
Mm-hmm.
goes back to our experiences and our awareness of self. And because if you know tons about scientific theory and you know tons about the experiment that's being done and the iterations that happened before it, like you're going to use that stuff as part of your answer to your new experiment thing. But the person who comes in fresh and clean is like, oh, I'm just watching this experiment as is, and they don't have anything else attached to it. Like that answer is going to be different because none of that baggage comes with it per se. And so sometimes it's really impossible. And I think it's important to, in the scope of religion, and we can use religion just like, well, we won't even use religion. We'll just use moral frameworks. Like we all have a moral framework. I believe this is right. I believe this is wrong. And some people don't have gray area. Yet us as people are very gray. Our movies are about that gray area. The most powerful dramas we see are about that gray area where you'll see somebody doing something morally right, even though it goes against some law written in some book
Mm-hmm.
that we've. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I think the more that we can look at life and look at people from the lens of, take the lens of right and wrong off and look at what's right and wrong for this specific situation. And sometimes you're not able to know what the right or wrong choice was without making it. And
Absolutely.
so
Yeah.
like you said, like the example you used earlier, like, oh, I need to say this thing to my wife. Aren't you glad we had this argument? You knew for you that was the right thing. But now that you've done that and you've experienced the blowback of your own reality, you get to adjust subtly in the future to make that
Yeah.
choice a little more valuable for the both of you. And you can know, like, okay, I understand. Like maybe it was my tone. My wife doesn't like it. This is my bathroom door. This is like a corner in my bedroom. So this little alcove. My wife does not like it if I'm standing here having a conversation while she's in the bathroom doing makeup because she feels trapped. Like whatever stuff she's got, she's like, I just don't like it. If we're having a conversation that's like even sort of heated in any way, like it's just like, I got to stand, like I got to be sure I'm standing to the side, even though I may think it's silly.
Right.
I want to be in relationship with her. And so I want to learn how to be better and learn how to do this. And so it's like, it's all feedback, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
when
Absolutely.
you receive the feedback, you can be like, well, I think not standing in front of the door is dumb. I'm going to continue to stand in front of the door. And maybe that's you just saying, I don't want to be in this relationship anymore.
Right. Or at least saying, I want to be in control.
For sure.
Because same thing. Holly will tell me that I stand up and pace around the room when we get in this fight.
Mm-hmm.
That's a position of power, whether it's conscious or subconscious. It's a position of power. And so, like, if I'm actually trying, I will sit down. And if I'm really trying to communicate, I'll drop down into my hypnotist voice, and and I have to be like, babe, listen, I have to talk this way to be able to control my emotions. And it drives her absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
But I'm like, seriously, like this is because when I'm like hypnotizing people, making audio programs, doing things like that, that's the voice I use. That voice is like anchored in a calm state.
For sure.
So she hates it because it's annoying, but at the same time, like, you've got to, like, it works. And I think kind of we keep coming back to this, and I kind of think it can really be summed up by, like, if you're in a relationship, pay attention.
Yes.
Pay attention. Hey, we had a fight. That sucked. What did I learn from that fight? Where do we go from there? What out of that fight what benefits me? Mm-hmm. And like the first time you come up with that, we're like, what the hell do you mean? What benefits me? What can I, but like, there's obviously something good in there that happened, whether that was like, I finally blurted out this thing that's been pissing me off for a week, or, like you said, your wife's like, stop standing in front of the door. You're keeping me trapped in here. Like, okay, new piece of information sit inside the communication folder. Using being a hypnotist, sometimes I put the brain in terms of a file cabinet or a hard drive, and you go to that file and you open it up, and that's your subconscious. That's just the information that is inside that named folder. Fighting. Open that folder up, and it's like, first of all, get in there and change the file name from fighting to communicating.
For sure. Yes.
Open that up, pull out the thing that says, stand up, put your hands on your hips and stomp around the room and talk loud, and put in, sit down, talk in a calm voice, and, eye contact. You're like, oh, look how we've completely changed that idea. So,
well, it brings empathy back into the conversation.
Oh, isn't that nice?
Yeah. It brings empathy back, man. And like, that's why I like doing, like, when I work with clients, most of my clients are on the mainland. And so I do everything via like this. I want to be able to see the other person.
Oh, for sure.
It brings that empathy in there. And it's just like, as soon as you take the face away, then you can say stuff over the phone. And then as soon as you take the voice away, that you could just like, we're huge dicks on the internet. It's just because there's no empathy. People don't care, because it's just, you're literally just, especially when social media is involved. And I want people to really think about this. When you're yelling at Twitter, you're just yelling at your own reflection. Like, if there's no person sitting there, like whatever, like, Sandy Jeans 247 says on, I don't know if Sandy Jeans is such a random thing, says on Twitter, whatever emotions, angry, you're just yelling at yourself. You're yelling at your own anger. It's hilarious. Yeah. And it's just an infinite loop. And that loop never stops. Like, the more you put it in, like, oh, sweet, we're just going to let's just dump gasoline on this bucket of stupid. So it's dumb. Yeah. So one of my guilty pleasures, I like to go to Twitter and like read people fighting, like watch people fight. And I do my best not to engage, because it's just like, all right, I got it out of me. I see, yep, it's not worth it. Like, I see what happens. It's like the evidence is there. It's going to happen as soon as you say something. Even if you think it's like, I have the most perfectly thing, it's going to diffuse everything and everybody's going to see the light. And then the hate just comes in right behind it. And you're like, how did this happen? And then I go to, that was so perfectly thin. And then confusion sets in, and then the anger sets in, and then you're just like, and it's just, it's ridiculous.
Well, the terrible thing about social media is it allows you to like sit in your anger longer.
Yes.
So this comes back to reflection. And I did an episode on anger the other day, and I'm like, okay, so scenario, you and your wife get in an argument like 9:00 at night. You're like, screw it, I'm tired, we're fighting, I'm going to bed. I have to be honest. I think that in my world, at least, I've learned don't go to bed angry means keep fighting. And so I disagree with that. Never go to bed angry. Shut up.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you should go to bed angry, or else it's going to be 1:30 in the morning and you're still
Mhm.
screaming at each other
You're still screaming
because
at each
you're
other. You
trying to
gotta get up.
fix it right now
Yeah.
while you're still pissed off. It doesn't work.
And then
So,
you got to get up at 5 a.m. to get your kids ready for school. And it's just like,
and then you're going to carry, so
yeah.
you're still going to be mad about it. And then,
Mm-hmm.
so like oftentimes I'll leave in the morning still pissed off, right? And then I'll want to, and then that'll just keep going in my brain and keep going and going and going. And it's like, okay, we fought last night at 9 o'clock, went to bed after that, woke up this morning, was grumpy before I left the house. Now I'm still trying to be mad at her. She's not around.
Right.
So what good does that do?
Yeah.
Like, you're going to spend
If
your
the person's
whole
not there and
day.
you're still mad, you're just mad.
You're just mad,
Not
and you're going to
mad,
spend your
yeah.
whole day. And then by the
Mhm.
time you get back home, you'll either be in a really terrible shitstorm spiral because you've been mad for 18 hours,
Right.
or it will have finally naturally dissipated and you just gave yourself an extra 4 or 5 hours of being pissed off at yourself,
For sure.
going through all of the emotions of being
Mhm.
mad at somebody else, but only to dump them on yourself and ruin your
Yeah.
own day. So it's just like, it all, even though you're mad at somebody else, you're mirroring it and giving yourself the side effects without, if you would call it that, without the benefit of them feeling it.
I don't even know. Our need for other people to feel what we're feeling. It's not even real. It's not even a real thing. So this is fascinating. And I think one of the things too, like we'll use today's Monday, right? Yeah. Today's Monday. A lot of people have problems with Monday.
Right.
But it's not Monday that's the problem. It's the label and the value that you have assigned to Monday that you have a problem with. The day is never shitty. Oh, today sucks. No, it doesn't. You suck.
Yeah.
Period. It is. Oh, I hate that person. No, you just hate.
Yeah.
It's just like, that's what it is. Like, just drop off the last part and just assign that to you, the value. Oh, I love it when this person does this for me. No, you just love. Or but even, when receiving gifts, like, you're just love. Or, but then you can check in with that. Like, is that the only time that you feel that is when you're being validated by some external source? And then that's like, well, how can I go replicate this without that person there? And then the more you can do that, the more that you can just be that. And then you're just going to surround yourself with people that want to do that too. And you're going to be able to see very clearly the people that don't want to do that. And then you can start making some tough decisions, because they're tough decisions.
Well, even that I hate Mondays thing, or whatever it is that finishes that sentence is an opportunity. It's like, I hate Mondays. Why do you hate Mondays? Because I have to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning and go to this shitty job and da 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 da. So do you really hate Mondays, or do you hate the job? Do you need to find another outlet? Because I love Monday mornings, because Mondays I don't have to go to the day job.
Yeah.
So I get to get up early and sit in my own office and work on my own stuff. That is my avenue out of the day job, which I work for my brother. I play with dogs. It's awesome. I love my day job, but at the same time, it's not my passion, so I love Mondays, and I'm happy now to have better control of my weekends where I can be more productive, because I'm not still hungover and I got some sleep and that kind of stuff. So now I can attack these Mondays better. But
for sure,
it doesn't have anything to do with the day. It doesn't have anything to do with, the time, space, or the fact that it's not the weekend. It has to do with what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's your control.
100%, man. 100%. Cool, brother.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah, I'm stoked about it. This is good stuff.
Yeah. I always love chatting with you. Anywhere else you want to go from here on the topic?
No, man.
I kind of think we dug pretty good there.
Yeah, I think we dug pretty good. I think just the most important thing that I'd like people to take away is like, what can you do today? Like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate your life? Just whatever pops into your chest, just take it and own it. Oh man, my number was 3. Okay, cool. You're at 3. Like, let's just be real about that. That's not a great place to be. And like, second question, what could you do to improve that number? So it's a quick exercise. And then number 3, why aren't you doing that? What lies are you telling yourself to keep yourself from working out of that? And just take responsibility for that. Ask yourself that question as many times as you feel it's necessary, and just start building blocks, man. It's like, eating an elephant one bite at a time, or building a brick wall, like one brick at a time, or whichever nuanced freaking cliche thing you want to use for you. I don't care. Do whatever you could be doing to improve that. Because every time you do that, it's going to improve everybody who's in a relationship with you. It's going to improve their lives. And if it doesn't, you may not want to be in a relationship with those people, you know? So
I love
yeah.
it. I absolutely love it. I love that little exercise. It's awesome.
Yeah, man.
I
Super
absolutely
simple
love
and
it.
easy. For sure.
So real quick before we go, where can these people find out more about you? Tell them about the podcast.
Yeah, I am at ryancharaba.com. That's ryancharaba.com. The podcast is First Wake Ups with Ryan Charaba. That's at ryancharaba.com/podcasts. Or download any podcast app that you have, whether you're on iTunes or Android or whatever, and just search either Ryan Charaba or First Wake Ups. Wake Ups is one word, WAKEUPS. And then please, once you've listened to that, if you love it, rate and review it on iTunes. If you hate it, rate and review it on iTunes anyways. And then you can find me in whichever social media you prefer at Ryan Charaba, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Yeah, just come check me out. There's a free Facebook group that I'm actually just getting off the ground right now. The purpose of this group is for people to get together and share and connect, just for the purpose of sharing and connecting these stories that we like to trade, so that we can begin to build value from them instead of just like deconstruct. And so that is the First Wake Up's Inner Circle. It's free, just First Wake Up's Inner Circle, or you can find a link to it from my business page on Facebook, which is at Ryan Charaba. And then, yeah, join in there, get involved in the conversation. And if you have any questions, you can also send me an email at ryan@ryancharaba.com. Yeah, that's all the places you can find me. Or just, if you forget all of that, just Google Ryan Charaba and then pick a spot that I come up at and just hit, message and send, and we'll definitely get involved. And so, yeah, having these conversations is my favorite thing. If you have any questions about anything, please reach out. Do not even hesitate for a moment, unless you notice you're hesitating, and then definitely reach out. So, definitely reach out. So,
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely. Definitely reach out to this guy. He's an awesome resource. He loves to help people, and check out his podcast. It's super good. All kinds of real and raw stuff. So if you liked anything that I do, he inspired me. So go check him out.
Cool.
And we'll wrap up there. I always end everything by saying, make every day better than the day before. And if you don't, that's totally fine, because it means tomorrow will be easy. So live with gratitude, celebrate your victories, and we'll see y'all tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.
Cool, man.